The ER chief blocked her path with his clipboard. "You're limping, Foster. Stay in triage." She nodded, stepped back, said nothing. They didn't know what the limp meant. They couldn't know. That's when the windows rattled. 4 Marine helicopters descended on the hospital roof, unscheduled, unannounced. The lead pilot's voice crackled through every speaker in the building. "We need Angel 6, now!" The chief went pale. "Angel 6? That's not... There's no one here by that..." A Marine Corps colonel stepped off the first bird, combat fatigues, medals, blood on his uniform, his eyes locked on her. "Captain Foster, we've got 8 critical and a senator bleeding out at 30,000 feet. You're the only surgeon who can work in flight." The chief's clipboard clattered to the floor. She was already moving. The ER chief blocked her path with his clipboard. "You're limping, Foster. Stay in triage." She nodded, stepped back, said nothing. They didn't know what the limp meant. They couldn't know. That's when the windows rattled. 4 Marine helicopters descended on the hospital roof, unscheduled, unannounced. The lead pilot's voice crackled through every speaker in the building. "We need Angel 6, now." The chief went pale. "Angel 6? That's not... There's no one here by that..." A Marine Corps colonel stepped off the first bird. Combat fatigues, medals, blood on his uniform, his eyes locked on her. "Captain Foster, we've got 8 critical and a senator bleeding out at 30,000 feet. You're the only surgeon who can work in flight." The chief's clipboard clattered to the floor. She was already moving. Morrison recovered first. He stepped between Foster and the Marines, his face flushed red, his authority challenged in front of his entire staff. His hand came up like a traffic cop. "Wait. Just wait 1 damn minute." The colonel didn't even glance at him. Morrison's voice climbed higher. "There's been a mistake. She's a floor nurse. She can barely handle her shift with that leg. Look at her." The ER staff had formed a semicircle behind Morrison, watching, whispering. Foster could feel their eyes on her limp, on her faded scrubs, on everything she'd worked so hard to hide. Pity mixed with confusion on their faces. The colonel's communication device beeped, once, twice, urgent and insistent. He finally looked at Morrison, the kind of look that could strip paint. "I don't care what she is now. I care what she was," Morrison sputtered. "She's not qualified for..." The device beeped again. The colonel pressed it to his ear, listened. His jaw tightened. Senator's pressure dropping, 90/60 and falling. 3 Marines coding. "We need her airborne in 5 minutes or we start losing them." He turned back to Foster. His voice cut through the chaos like a scalpel. Campaign plane had a malfunction at cruising altitude. Emergency landing attempt went sideways. 8 Marines with massive internal trauma. Senator took shrapnel to the thoracic cavity. The plane can't land for 90 minutes. Storm systems across 3 states. Morrison actually laughed, a sharp, disbelieving sound. "You're talking about operating in a depressurized aircraft, in flight, during a storm. That's insane. No one can... We need someone who's done chest cracks in a flying metal coffin before." The colonel's eyes never left Foster. Morrison shook his head. "That's impossible. No civilian surgeon has that training. You need military..." "She's not civilian." The words hung in the air. Foster felt something crack inside her chest, something she'd kept carefully sealed for 3 years. The whispers behind her grew louder. Morrison's face cycled through confusion, disbelief, anger. Her hands were steady at her sides, despite everything, despite the memories clawing their way up her throat. Muscle memory doesn't forget. No matter how hard you try to make it, the colonel took 1 step closer to her, only her. His voice dropped. "Lieutenant Brennan is on that plane. Your platoon medic from Kandahar." The world tilted. "Brennan?" The word escaped before she could stop it. Just his name. Just that 1 syllable that carried 4 years of shared trauma, of impossible saves, of blood-soaked sand and the screaming of rotors overhead. Morrison grabbed her arm. "This is insane. She can't even..." Foster looked at him, really looked at him, at his pristine white coat, his clean hands, his comfortable certainty that he understood anything about what was possible. "Get me a sat phone link to that aircraft, now." Her voice was different, harder, the voice she'd buried along with her uniform. Morrison's hand fell away. She turned toward the stairwell that led to the roof. Her limp was pronounced. It always was when the adrenaline started. Each step a reminder of the last time she'd made choices like this. 2 Marines moved to flank her, young, respectful, offering assistance without words. She didn't accept. Morrison called after her, his voice echoing up the concrete stairwell. "You don't have privileges here anymore for surgical." She didn't turn around. "I have privileges where it counts." 23 steps to the roof. She counted each one a choice, each one a memory. Step 7. Kandahar. First chest crack under mortar fire. Step 12. Davies, 19 years old, dead because she certified him for transport. Step 18. The helicopter crash. Her leg crushed, her career ended. Step 23. Today, now. Brennan dying at 30,000 feet. The roof access door burst open. Wind slammed into her like a physical force. The helicopter blades were deafening, a sound that lived in her nightmares, that she heard every time she closed her eyes. The colonel was beside her, shouting over the noise. He held out a flight suit. "It'll be just like old times, Captain." She took the suit, started pulling it on over her scrubs. The fabric felt like a second skin, like betrayal, like coming home to a house that had burned down. She met his eyes. "Nothing is like old times, Colonel." But she zipped the suit anyway. The helicopter was waiting, blades spinning, door open. A crew chief extending his hand to pull her aboard. Behind her, through the roof access door, she could see Morrison and half the ER staff crowding the stairwell, watching, still not understanding. Foster grabbed the crew chief's hand. The helicopter lifted before she'd even strapped in. Below, the hospital shrank away. The city spread out in neat grids of lights and traffic, orderly, predictable, safe, everything she was leaving behind. The colonel handed her a headset. His voice came through clear despite the rotor noise. 87 minutes until that plane can land. Senator's got a sucking chest wound. 3 Marines with tension pneumothorax, 2 with compound fractures and internal bleeding, 1 unresponsive. And Brennan. He paused. Brennan's got a piece of the instrument panel through his chest cavity. Clean through. We don't know what it's hit. He's conscious. Stable for now. But if that panel shifts... Foster's hands had already started moving, checking the medical kit mounted on the helicopter wall. Inventory by touch, scalpels, clamps, sutures, chest tubes. Not enough, never enough. But it would have to be. The colonel watched her work. When she looked up, something like relief had crossed his face. "Welcome back, Angel 6. Foster turned to the window. The lights below were disappearing. Ahead, only darkness and storm clouds. She wasn't back. She'd never be back. But Brennan was dying, and that was the only thing that mattered. The helicopter banked hard, chasing coordinates in the sky, chasing a plane full of people who needed someone willing to do the impossible. Foster closed her eyes. Her hands remembered what her heart had tried to forget. Time to find out if that was enough. The mid-air transfer took 47 seconds. Foster didn't think about the gap between the helicopter and the plane's emergency hatch. Didn't think about the turbulence or the wind shear or the 1,000 feet of empty air beneath her boots. She just moved. The plane's interior hit her like a fist. Blood on the walls, blood on the ceiling. The thick copper smell of it mixing with jet fuel and fear. Emergency lighting cast everything in sickly red. The cabin had been gutted for the emergency landing attempt. Seats ripped out, medical equipment scattered across the floor, and bodies. 8 Marines in various states of broken. Foster's assessment was automatic, clinical. 3 with tension pneumothorax, chests compressed, breathing labored. 2 with visible compound fractures, bone through skin, femurs, tibias. 1 unresponsive, pupils blown, and Brennan with a piece of the instrument panel through his chest cavity, 2 feet of jagged metal, entry point below the left clavicle, exit somewhere near the spine. He was sitting upright, braced against the bulkhead, conscious. His face was gray. An Air Force medic stumbled toward her. Name tape read, Torres. His hands were shaking. Blood soaked his uniform. Not his blood. I can't. They said you could. Foster didn't answer. She was already moving, already calculating. Triage hierarchy established in 10 seconds. Brennan first. He's got maybe 12 minutes before the panel shifts and severs his subclavian. Then the pneumothorax cases. Then the compound fractures. The unresponsive Marine was already gone. She knew it. Torres knew it, but neither of them said it. She knelt beside Brennan. His eyes found hers. Recognition. Relief. something else she couldn't name. "Hey, Captain." His voice was barely a whisper. "Don't talk." She assessed the panel, entry angle, depth. The metal was wedged between his third and fourth ribs. Miracle. It hadn't hit the aorta. Miracle it hadn't collapsed the lung. Miracle he was still breathing. But miracles ran out. Torres handed her instruments without being asked. His hands steadied the moment she took charge. Training taking over. The plane lurched, turbulence every 40 seconds. She timed it, counted between the bumps, worked in the stable moments. The surgical bay was improvised, 2 seats pulled together, emergency floods for lighting, oxygen masks hanging loose from overhead compartments, pressure fluctuations making her ears pop. This wasn't a hospital. This was chaos held together by aluminum and prayer. Foster's hands moved, precise, calculated, perfect. Torres watched her prep the extraction site, watched her mark the vessels with a surgical pen, watched her set up the suction and clamps in perfect sequence. "How are you doing this?" "Intercostal approach. Avoid the vessels. Control the bleed before extraction." She didn't look up, didn't need to. Her fingers knew the anatomy better than any textbook, better than any scan. She'd done this 47 times before. Clamp. Torres handed it over. Suction. The blood cleared. She could see the panel edge now, see exactly what it was touching. Subclavian artery, right there, 1 millimeter away. "Don't breathe." She wasn't sure if she was talking to Torres or herself. The plane lurched again. Her hand didn't move. Steady, despite the turbulence, despite the memories, despite everything. Panel extraction in one smooth motion. Blood welled up. She was ready. Clamp in place before the first drop fell. Suction clearing the field. Pressure applied exactly where it needed to be. Pressure. Hold, hold. Torres counted seconds under his breath. Foster didn't count, she just held. Brennan's vitals on the portable monitor. Heart rate climbing, blood pressure dropping, then stabilizing, climbing back. The bleeding stopped. He's stable. 11 minutes, 43 seconds. Brennan's eyes fluttered open, found her face. The corner of his mouth twitched, almost a smile. "Angel 6. You came back?" Foster turned away, moved to the next patient. The second Marine had a tension pneumothorax, right side, chest compressed, trachea deviated. Classic presentation. She needed a chest tube, needed it 5 minutes ago. Torres had the kit ready. Foster prepped the insertion site. 5th intercostal space, mid-axillary line. She could do this blind. Had done it blind. In sandstorms, in the dark, under mortar fire, Afghanistan. The memory hit without warning, forward operating base. She was the only trauma surgeon for 200 miles. They called her Angel 6. Not because she was angelic, because during one mortar attack she'd operated on 6 patients simultaneously. Triaged, prioritized, saved all 6. 47 chest cracks under enemy fire, 47 saves. Her hands moved on autopilot, chest tube insertion, the hiss of released pressure. The Marine's breathing eased immediately. Until number 48. Davies, 19 years old, baby face, IED trauma, shrapnel through the chest and abdomen. She'd worked on him for 3 hours, stabilized him, thought she'd saved him, certified him for transport, put him on the helicopter with 3 others, all stable, all saved. The helicopter took fire 2 minutes after liftoff, crashed. Davies died. All 4 of them died. Foster had been on that helicopter, supervising the transfers, making sure her patients stayed stable. Her leg got crushed when they went down, pinned under the wreckage, 2 surgeries, permanent limp, permanent reminder. I put them on that bird. I certified them for transport. I killed them. She came home 6 months later, took a floor position, hid. The plane bucked hard, equipment scattered. Foster caught the surgical tray before it hit the floor, moved to the 3rd pneumothorax case, inserted another chest tube, textbook perfect. Torres was watching her with something like awe. Then the monitor screamed, "The 4th Marine, cardiac tamponade, fluid around the heart, needs emergency pericardiocentesis, now." But the senator. Foster turned. The senator had been stable, shrapnel wound, bandaged and packed, breathing steady. Not anymore. His pressure was dropping, fast, massive internal bleeding, ruptured spleen. Torres looked at her, then at the 2 critical patients. His face went pale. "We can't do both. You have to choose." The plane hit severe turbulence, hard enough to throw Torres against the bulkhead. Equipment scattered again. 60 minutes until landing. 2 patients dying simultaneously. This is Kandahar all over again. Choose who lives, choose who dies. Davies staring at her with dead eyes, the helicopter burning, her legs screaming, the choice she'd made, the choice that killed them. Captain. Brennan's voice, weak but steady. She turned. He was sitting up, color returning to his face. His eyes were clear. You taught me. I can do the pericardiocentesis. Foster looked at him, at the hole in his chest, at the blood still seeping through the bandages, at the determination on his face that she recognized because she'd put it there, years ago, in the sand, teaching him to save lives when everything was falling apart. She made the call. Talk me through it while I operate on the Senator. We do them both. Torres stared at her like she'd lost her mind. Brennan just nodded. Foster moved to the Senator, scalpel already in hand. Brennan's voice came from across the cabin, steady, reciting the steps she'd taught him, subxiphoid approach, needle at 45 degrees. She made the first incision. I'll feel resistance at the pericardium. Blood welled. She clamped, suctioned, found the spleen, ruptured completely, needed to come out. Aspirate slowly, watch for blood. Her hands worked, fast, precise, no wasted movement. Brennan's voice never wavered. The monitor stopped screaming. Got it. Pressure's equalizing. Foster tied off the last vessel, removed the spleen, packed the cavity. The Senator's pressure climbed, both patients stable, both alive. She looked across the cabin at Brennan. He was pale, shaking, but smiling. Just like you taught me, Captain. Foster's hands were covered in blood, but they weren't shaking, not even a little. The dual save was like conducting an orchestra in a hurricane. Foster's voice cut through the chaos, calm, precise, authoritative. She coached Brennan through the pericardiocentesis while her own hands worked on the Senator's abdomen. 2 surgeries, 2 patients, 1 chance. Needle at the costal margin, 45-degree angle. Her hands moved through the splenectomy, laparotomy in turbulent conditions. The plane bucked every 40 seconds like clockwork. She worked between the lurches, clamped vessels during the stable moments, tied off bleeders with muscle memory that ran deeper than thought. You'll feel the resistance. Push through. Brennan's breathing was labored. She could hear it across the cabin, hear him fighting through the pain, through the shock, but his voice stayed steady when he responded. Felt it. Going through now. Foster's fingers found the splenic artery, clamped. The bleeding slowed. She worked faster. The spleen was completely ruptured, unsalvageable, had to come out, aspirate slowly. Tell me when you see blood. The plane dropped. 20 feet in half a second. Equipment rattled. Torres grabbed the overhead rail. Foster's hands never moved. Steady. Locked in position. The vessel clamp held. Got blood. Straw-colored. That's the pericardial fluid, right? Correct. Keep aspirating. Watch the pressure on the monitor. She removed the Senator's spleen. 8 minutes start to finish. Textbook. Better than textbook. She packed the cavity, checked for additional bleeding. Clean. Torres stood between both surgical sites, watching. His face cycled through disbelief and awe. He'd been an Air Force surgeon for 12 years. He'd seen combat medicine, seen field hospitals, seen things that would break most people. He'd never seen this. Pressure's equalizing. It's working. Foster tied the final suture on the Senator, checked his vitals, blood pressure climbing, heart rate steadying, breathing normal. Good. Dress the insertion site, monitor him for the next 10 minutes, both patients stabilized, within seconds of each other. The Senator opened his eyes, confused, disoriented, alive. Brennan slumped back against the bulkhead, exhausted, triumphant, 41 minutes to landing. Torres finally found his voice. He looked at Foster like she was something out of a myth, something that shouldn't exist in the real world. She's the reason half my unit survived. Brennan's voice was quiet, reverent. Helmand Province. 2019. We got hit. Ambush. 12 casualties. She operated for 16 hours straight. No breaks, no backup, just her. She's the reason I became a medic, wanted to be like her. Torres turned to Foster. I've been an Air Force surgeon for 12 years. I've never seen anyone work like that. Foster didn't respond. She was checking the other Marines, stabilizing the compound fractures, making sure the chest tubes were secure, doing the work that didn't require miracles, just competence. The radio crackled, a voice she recognized. Morrison. He'd been listening via satellite link the whole time. hearing everything. Foster. How long were you? His voice was shaken. All the authority stripped away. Just shock. Just the realization of how badly he'd misjudged. Foster kept working. Didn't look up. 12 years active duty, 4 deployments. I didn't think it mattered anymore. The colonel's voice came through. Quiet, certain, it always mattered, Captain. 20 minutes to landing. Everyone stable, everyone breathing. Foster allowed herself one moment, one breath, 1 second to feel the weight lift. Then the 5th Marine started seizing. The one who'd been stable, the one she'd triaged as low priority. Compound fracture, no internal bleeding. He'd been sitting quietly, waiting his turn. Now his body was rigid, convulsing, eyes rolled back. Torres was there in seconds. Air embolism from the pressure changes, the altitude. The fracture must have introduced air into his bloodstream. Critical window. Must be resolved before landing or brain damage is permanent. No proper equipment, no hyperbaric chamber, no way to force the air bubbles out of his system conventionally. Morrison's voice over the radio. Panicked now. Foster, you can't. There's no way to. She cut him off. Stop telling me what I can't do. She grabbed Torres, positioned him at the Marine's head. Modified Trendelenburg position, head down, feet elevated, force the air bubbles away from the brain, give them time to dissolve. But it wouldn't be enough. She looked around the cabin. Emergency oxygen, high flow. She cranked it to maximum, placed the mask over the Marine's face. Improvised hyperbaric technique, flood his system with oxygen, force the nitrogen bubbles to shrink. Torres stared at her. This is textbook trauma innovation. Where did you learn this? There is no textbook for this. You make it up and hope it works. The Marine's seizing slowed, stopped. His eyes focused, confused but aware. The embolism resolved. 6 minutes to landing. Foster felt the plane descending, felt the pressure change in her ears, felt every injury, every save, every ghost riding with her in this metal tube. The wheels touched down. Emergency teams swarmed the moment the hatch opened. Paramedics, nurses, physicians, an entire trauma response unit. Foster coordinated the transfers, each patient, each injury, each specific need, ensuring continuity of care, making sure nothing was missed. Her limp was pronounced now, adrenaline wearing off, pain returning, the old injury making itself known. 3 years of hiding, 3 years of pretending she was less than she was, all of it stripped away in 90 minutes. Morrison was waiting on the tarmac. His face had transformed. The dismissal, the pity, the condescension, all of it gone, replaced by something she hadn't seen in 3 years. Respect. I owe you an apology. We all do. Foster kept walking, supervising the transfers, making sure Brennan got priority transport. Morrison followed her. I reviewed your file after you went up. I had no idea. Angel 6 was. You were legendary. The things you did. The saves you made. Why didn't you tell us? Foster stopped, turned, looked at him with eyes that had seen things he couldn't imagine. That person died in a helicopter crash. Morrison shook his head. No. She just stopped believing in herself. He took a breath, gathered himself. Our trauma department needs a director, someone who can do the impossible, someone who's already proven they can. The board will approve it. I'll make sure of it. We need you. Foster felt the words like a physical weight. The offer, the recognition, the chance to step back into the light, and all the ghosts that came with it. I can't go back to that life. Too many ghosts. A voice from behind her, weak, defiant. Captain, you didn't save me so I could watch you quit again. Brennan, being loaded into an ambulance, pale, bleeding, alive because she'd made the choice to trust him, to teach him, to believe he could do what seemed impossible. He smiled at her, that same smile from Kandahar, from 100 impossible moments. Foster looked at Morrison, at Brennan, at the plane behind them with 8 Marines alive who shouldn't be, at Torres approaching with something like worship in his eyes, at the colonel nodding once, a gesture of respect between soldiers. She didn't say yes, but she didn't say no, and for the first time in 3 years, that felt like enough. 3 days later, Foster walked the hospital halls, still limping, but different now. She passed the ER, saw Morrison directing staff through a standard trauma, compound fracture, nothing critical. He was handling it well, competently, but not exceptionally. He noticed her, stopped mid-instruction, approached carefully, like someone approaching something wild that might bolt. "Have you thought about the offer?" Foster stopped. The limp made her weight shift to her good leg. 3 years of compensation, 3 years of hiding behind that slight hitch in her step. The limp will never go away. The guilt won't disappear. Davies will always be 19. The helicopter will always crash. Her leg will always remind her. But maybe that's not the point. Maybe survival means carrying the weight and walking anyway. "I have conditions." Morrison's eyebrows lifted. "Name them." "I train every trauma resident myself. No one goes into the field unprepared." Morrison nodded. "I want a satellite link to military medical units. When they need consultation, they get it." He nodded again. "And Brennan. When he's cleared, I want him on my team." Morrison extended his hand. "Done. When can you start?" Foster looked at his hand, at the offer it represented, at the door she'd closed 3 years ago that was suddenly open again. She shook it. "I already have." 2 weeks later, Foster stood in the trauma bay wearing scrubs and a trauma director badge. First day. Mass casualty event. Multi-car pileup on the interstate. 12 incoming, various states of critical. The residents were overwhelmed, young, uncertain, looking around for someone to tell them what to do. They found her. Foster didn't hesitate, didn't hide. The commands flowed naturally, like breathing, like muscle memory that had been waiting 3 years to be used again. "You. Chest tube on the pneumothorax. You. Cross-match 4 units. You. Get me a portable ultrasound. Move." They moved. She limped between gurneys, the hitch in her step visible, pronounced. But now it was different. Not a weakness, not something to hide. A mark of experience, survival. Proof she'd been through worse and come out the other side. One resident whispered to another, "That's her." Angel 6. Foster overheard, didn't flinch, didn't turn away. For the first time in 3 years, the call sign didn't hurt. She moved to the next patient, assessed, triaged, saved. The limp followed her. But so did excellence. 6 months later. The simulation lab was full. 20 residents, all watching Foster run a trauma scenario. High-fidelity mannequins, simulated mass casualty, chaos carefully constructed to teach them what chaos really felt like. Brennan was there. Certified trauma specialist now. The hole in his chest healed to a scar. He assisted Foster with the simulation, played the role of field medic, taught the residents what it meant to work with limited resources and unlimited stakes. Torres had transferred from the Air Force, now on her team. He ran the technical side, made sure the simulations were as real as possible without actual blood. Morrison watched from the observation deck. The hospital board stood with him. Suits and clipboards, metrics and outcomes. One board member reviewed the data. Trauma survivability is up 34% since she took over. Morrison smiled. Not the condescending smile from before. Something genuine. She's training an entire generation differently, teaching them that impossible just means you haven't found the solution yet. Below, Foster addressed the residents, her voice carried through the speakers. In the field, in the air, in chaos. You don't freeze, you calculate, you move, you save them. The residents listened like scripture because she'd proven every word. Later, after the simulation, Foster reviewed x-rays in her office, standing at the light board, the limp visible as she shifted her weight, as she moved from one image to the next, but her reflection in the window showed something else. Not the diminished floor nurse who'd hidden for 3 years, not the broken veteran who'd let guilt consume her, Captain Foster, Angel 6, whole again, not because the limp was gone, not because the guilt had disappeared, not because Davies was any less dead or the helicopter crash any less real, but because she'd learned to carry it, all of it, and still move forward. Brennan knocked on the door frame. She turned. Colonel's on the line. Situation in Somalia. They need consultation on a field amputation. Foster picked up the phone. "This is Angel 6. Talk to me." The words came easily now. The identity she'd buried, the competence she'd hidden, the legacy she'd abandoned, all of it back. Not because the world had changed, because she had. They told her to stay back. She taught them to keep up. And in doing so, taught herself the same lesson. That survival isn't about forgetting. It's about remembering and choosing to move forward anyway, one limping step at a time.